Hello, welcome back. We are Economics Help Videos, and if you're this far along, you're aware of that already, but we have a website, econhelpvideos.com, and we're trying to create some videos to help people understand the introductory economics models that are out there, and especially hopefully helping introductory microeconomics students and introductory macroeconomics students. There's two introductory courses for economics. And we hope to help just about anybody who's interested in economics review some of the details of the models that are out there, and maybe even some younger students in high school or middle school that want to look ahead and see how math might be applied to areas of business and economics and in the world out there. Okay, so again, you've been watching these videos probably already, but we are definitely, so low tech that it's silly, right? It's one of our themes, right? That the guys came up for us. Becky, thank you very much for being here. Becky, our producer's here once again. Our terrific assistants, Courtney, who does all of the help with everything, and Jake, the photographer, are off doing some volunteer stuff. We're so proud of them. So I'm going to have to do some camera work, and it's not good. So it's even more low tech. So again, very old school. The idea is a lot of these models, early on models, introductory models, before you do all the fancy tools and the calculators and the computer programs and all of the different fancy graphics and apps maybe, you have to really, to understand it, do it by hand. It's sort of like when your math teacher said, hey, with form and division, put those calculators away. We gotta do some by hand so you understand what your calculator is doing. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're definitely in that world of low tech. I'm purposely writing on these presentation sheets because I want you guys to be thinking about, hey, what you need is a pen and paper and a notebook, a copybook, this is a supply video, supply 3S. Grab some paper, and I'm saying blue paper here for supply, green paper for demand is one of the silly things I'm doing. But, so this is video, supply 3S, and the zeros in there, I'll tell you later. It deals with the determinants of supply, and when they change, they cause a change in supply, the three-word phrase, change in supply. And then a change in supply is graphically illustrated by shifting the entire supply curve. That's coming up in 4S, okay? So, sorry to be so nerdy, but this is definitely one that's going to be boring, and it's going to be tough details. But you gotta get to do the work to understand it. It's going to make the use of demand and supply, the marketplace model, the free markets, capitalism model. It's what our economy is based on. And these details will really help us. So you need to get 3S, right? This is what 3S looks like. I have the answers filled in italicized, right? Kind of suggested answers on the top, but we're going to go through the top half. The bottom half we're not going to go through. It is just the flip of the change on the top half. So whatever you get on the top half, it's just going to be in the other direction on the bottom half as you work through it. Does that make sense? Okay. So here's the list of the determinants of supply. They're going to change in a positive or favorable way right now. And then we're going to see how that changes supply, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit. And I'm going to show you this graph. This is what's coming up on 4S. On the left-hand side, we have a decrease in supply, and the supply curve shifts from S1 back to S3, right? Shift left. On the right-hand supply, there's a right-hand side of 4S, increase in supply, the supply curve shifts to the right. So I'll pop this up a couple of times. My big markers are not very good on here, so when you guys do it, just use regular pencil and paper and stuff. If you can find thinner colored pencils or markers, that would work. All the color stuff can help, but you don't have to, right? Just use a regular pen or paper and pencil. But I just wanted to try to demand in green, supply in blue. Again, S1 to S3, equilibrium price goes up, equilibrium quantity goes down. S1 to S2, when we have an increase, that's a shift right. The equilibrium price goes down then, and the equilibrium quantity goes up. That's coming up in 4S, and we're going to draw this together, but I thought maybe I'd pop this in every now and then to show you what it would look like. Okay, so excuse me for getting rid of this as I get some more room to move. All right, so there are a number of economic resources. Economists have them split up into 4 categories. The non-human ones are resources that come of the land resources or natural resources, and then man-made physical capital resources, like the physical plant that we might work in, factory or something like that, the assembly line, the robotics, the computers, the information systems, the hammers, the saws, the tools, the equipment, right, that we use, the physical capital. Then there's 2, according to economists, human resources, labor and the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurial ability, they say sometimes. The entrepreneurs are the owners and the innovators, the people creating the new businesses and new business ideas, and the laborers are out there working. I actually think there's a 3rd category in between there. Most great organizations reward you for your great entrepreneurial ideas, even though you're employed as a laborer, right? Or maybe you're a management laborer person, but they'll give you some bonus, right, when you come up with new ideas, right? So they encourage you to be an entrepreneur, even though you're working in a pretty, all different sizes of organizations, right? The great ones really try to incorporate out there. So I call that entrepreneurial labor, right? Or that parts of our labor jobs are entrepreneurial labor, right? That for the bonus and the stock options and that kind of stuff. But any increase in the price of a resource or input to the production process will cause production costs to go up. And therefore, it will cause our ability to supply to go down. And we graphically illustrate a decrease in supply by a shift left of the entire supply curve. And when we get over to 4S, that'll be a shift from S1 to S3, just like I kind of was showing you here. But this is a little too messy. But shift left on the left-hand side, S1 to S3, shift back. Okay, that's coming up on 4S. But I'll refer to it right here. Now, what if we have a favorable change in technology? Well, that should do something that should lower our production costs. And if our production costs go down per unit, we should have the ability to increase our supply. The model says that we graphically illustrate an increase in supply by a shift right of the entire supply curve. And then, again, on 4S, on the right-hand side of 4S, we're going to draw this together in the next video. S1 will shift right to S2, and then we'll look at the equilibrium results. Okay? So S1 to S2 on 4S. Okay, now, what if there's an increase in the number of sellers? Hey, we just did this, didn't this, back on video 00S, the Tough Times Bank one, when people were dumping the stock, lots of increase in sellers because of all the bad news about the Tough Times Bank. So if we increase the number of sellers, let me start public here, that is going to cause an increase in supply. And an increase in supply may be graphically illustrated by a shift right of the entire supply curve, for example, from S1 to S2 in figure 4S. Okay. Now, we need to think about supply now for a moment, okay? What happens, again, you're the owner of the business, you're the main pricing manager, right? You're thinking about what to do, right? You're on the business side of this, you're not on the buying side, on the demand consumer side. Right? We own this business. What if the future price goes up? We're anticipating that in the future, we expect the price to rise. What would happen to our supply now? The logical thought would be that we would decrease our supply now, right? Sort of hold back some for when the price, again, when we're on the supply side, we like higher prices because that's going to be higher revenue per unit. Price is the revenue per unit to a business, right? Or a seller or producer, manufacturer, supplier, right? The supplier. Okay, so that's going to decrease supply now, and a decrease in supply may be graphically illustrated by a shift left of the entire supply curve, and on 4S, the supply curve would move from S1 to S3 on the left-hand side of 4S. Okay, how's that look so far, right? Now, again, we're missing Jake, our photographer, so I got to jump behind there a little bit and get ready, and I put up a sheet here so it would not disturb us, but we have the next three, I think, on the list of determinants of supply. Excuse me for jumping behind. Jake's going to kill me. I'm not the best at this. In fact, let's see. I think he would be proud of me. I kind of got it close. All right. And I probably should flip these lights on. Thank you very much. I'm back. I'm going to put this guy. These are all so close. Over here a little bit. Okay. So here's the next list, right? And we're saying note, PC stands for production costs. If we increase production costs, that's going to cause a decrease in supply. If we decrease production costs some way, somehow that should help us supply more or increase supply. Okay? So how does that look? I think okay. All right. Now, businesses are going to treat taxes as if it was a cost, almost like a production cost, right? So if you increase business taxes, that's an increase in the production cost, then it's going to negatively impact your ability to supply. Right, so you hear that a lot when people talk about, corporations and businesses having their fair share of taxes, and what does that mean? There's a lot of opinion there about what the fair share of taxes are, but they'll come out with advertisements and say, hey, you're going to have a negative impact on our ability to supply and our production. And so mechanically coming back to the model, a decrease in supply may be graphically illustrated by a shift left of the entire supply curve. For example, on the 4S graphs, it'll be on the left-hand side, and we would go from S1 to shift to S3 to the left. Okay, now the subsidy is the opposite of a tax. Sometimes we as a society, through our government agents, the people we've elected, we want to try to encourage production of a good or service that may not have produced enough of it that we wanted as a society in just the private marketplace. So we subsidize education, we subsidize healthcare, we subsidize lots of things, national defense, all those kinds of products and services, right, that we really want as a society to produce, right? So if there's an increase in subsidies, that's going to cause production costs to go down and increase the ability of organizations and businesses to supply. An increase in supply may be graphically illustrated by a shift right of the entire supply curve. For example, on the 4S graphs, we would go from on the right-hand side from S1 to S2. Okay? Now, going through these pretty quickly, but an increase in the price of other produced goods. So let's say corn. If I'm a farmer and I'm splitting up my farm half and half in corn and wheat, and you're telling me that the price of corn is going to be going up more. My revenue per unit, and wheat's not changing so much. Corn's going to be going up pretty good, let's say, right? Just something we expect. So that higher revenues per unit of corn, what would happen to my supply of wheat and other produced good, right? How would these be related? Well, maybe I'll decrease my supply of wheat as I'll shift more into corn production, because that price is the one that's going up. Does that make sense? Many businesses make multiple goods and services, obviously, right? And they'll do some shifting of production based upon prices, right? And this is what happens. So the decrease in the supply of wheat may be graphically illustrated by a shift left of the entire supply curve. And in our 4S graphs on the left-hand side, that would be going from S1 to S3. So this is the details of the determinants of supply. Pretty boring, but you literally have to memorize these if you're going to be great at a multiple choice test, which like 90% of you will have in introductory economics. That's just the way it works, in intro, these big universities and big classes. But I'm going to go through some mechanics stuff right now, one more time as we finish up here. Okay, you guys, this is getting pretty boring, isn't it? There's the symbols. And oh my word, look at that, the website address is in there. Remember all those things, QS for quantity supply, S for supply, the P's and Q's. And remember, we're in quadrant 1 instead of Y and X. We're doing price on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal axis. This is called the Cartesian plane geometry space, right? That graph space, remember that stuff? both X and Y, or P and Q would be positive, in other words, and we deal with positive prices and quantities. Our theme about education and how we learn comes in steps. You guys have to do this background work and recognize and memorize and comprehend and understand the basic themes and concepts and definitions. Then I'm going to help you apply them, right, in the models, okay? And we think these videos will be for introductory students, both microeconomic students and macroeconomic students. We even think some moms and dads, professionals, maybe that are new to econ, or even those that might want to review it. And then, you know, moms and dads, do you have any younger high school students or even middle school students that are really good students and looking ahead, maybe they're a little bit bored? Right? Some of this stuff that I'm going to go through are literally things that build into test questions on a college course, right? And then coming back to remind us about supply. Oh, look, there's the website again, you guys, right? econhelpvideos.com. How did that sneak in there? Okay, so we did Tough Times Bank already. We did the definitions for 01S. 02S, we started to talk about change in quantity supply. And then here with the determinants of supply, we were getting into speaking about change in supply. If you change a determinant of supply, that causes a change in supply. And next we're going to do 4S, the change in supply graphs. And once again, a theme in these background videos is that the 4-word phrase and the 3-word phrases, change in supply, the 3-word phrase is different from a change in quantity supply, the 4-word phrase. A change in quantity supply in our model is graphically illustrated by a movement along the same supply curve, whereas a change in supply, the 3-word phrase, is graphically illustrated by a shift of the entire supply curve that's coming up in 4S. And if we increase supply, we're going to shift the supply curve to the right. If we decrease supply, we're going to shift the supply curve to the left. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to come back here once more and say a couple things. Okay, so I really believe we got to do this by hand, a lot of this stuff, right, in the models. So you're going to need a pen or a pencil, some paper, maybe your textbook, hopefully these videos, maybe just some regular paper or whatever, however way you do it. You're going to need to sit down and crank out this stuff by hand, even if you take multiple choice tests, because you're going to have to draw out some of this stuff. And this information will be the details of the background of how you do all those drawings. You draw them out, the picture is right there for how to answer those multiple choice questions. Thank you so much for your patience, for my thoughts about the way to do this. And thank you so much for viewing this video 3S, right? This has been video supply 3S. Supply 4S is coming up. That's where we're going to do the graphs. It's really cool. Where do you see it? Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. See you next time.